What we know is a drop. What we don't know is the ocean.
Hello and welcome to the Newton Knowledge Podcast. My name is Mark Singer, partner of Newton One Advisors, and I'm joined by our managing partner, Steve Target. The Newton Knowledge Podcast will provide meaningful content to our valued advisor community. Our discussions will deliver unique insights into the people, processes, and products that make our industry so critical. Newton One is a national life insurance planning firm delivering customized solutions structured to help clients and their advisors engaged in solving estate planning, wealth transfer, business succession, and executive benefits challenges. We are a member of the M Financial Group, which grants our clients access to the nation's elite carriers and exclusive products available only through our network.
I could tolerate any insurance seminar. For days, I could sit there and listen to them go on and on with a big smile on my face. I'd say, how can you stand it?
It's like a lighthearted question. I was thinking...
What do you want for that?
Like, what activity makes you lose track of time?
What activity makes you lose track of time? Testing. You like Melissa?
I don't think did you put it on the camera?
I did.
Okay. And I'll talk about improv. I do improv on the weekends.
You do improv on the weekend? Oh, this is going to be cake for you then.
Mark, is this one on? Can you tell?
Yeah. Why does this is what I don't, selling insurance as my day job, and then this is just, this microphone, some of them don't work well, and then some do. And I have no freaking idea why.
What do you mean?
Like, you speak into that one.
Hello?
Look how high, and then look at this. Look how, I guess it's all right.
I don't think that green thing in the middle actually is anything. It's not moving.
Yeah, it is. Speak.
Speak. Oh, I see all the way at the end.
That's like how this works. So that's on. So today we're going to explore the world of private placement life insurance, or PPLI. What it is, how it works, and how it fits into strategic wealth planning, asset protection, and tax-efficient investing. To help us unpack this type of planning that has truly taken the investment world by storm, we're joined by Dave Reynolds, Chief Marketing Officer of Spearhead Administrative Services. Dave, thank you for being with us today and flying up from Miami.
Gents, pleasure to be here.
Hopefully you brought some warm weather with you.
I don't know. It's gorgeous here. The flowers are blooming. You got some color out there. I like this. Miami is like mono season. It's just summer year round here.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
Yeah.
So tell us about your career path. I know we just talked about it a little bit in terms of, I don't want to call it stand-up comedy, but improv. But tell us about your career path and becoming the CMO of Spearhead.
Sure. So I graduated from University of Wisconsin-Madison. I grew up in Madison. Always knew I wanted to be a Badger. Graduated from UW through their CFP accredited financial planning major. And so coming out of college, I worked primarily in the alternative investment space, raising capital for early stage fund managers. And then back in 2013, I met a couple of partners that were launching a financial planning and diversified financial services business in South Florida, which was the predecessor firm to Spearhead Administrative Services. And so that business was really a financial planning and multifamily office practice. And I joined that firm. For a lot of our clients, we were implementing more sophisticated balance sheet planning as well as estate plans. And we were implementing PPLI and PPVA for a lot of those clients. And so by virtue of doing that planning for clients, I really learned this industry inside and out, built relationships with a lot of major insurance companies in the space, as well as worked with our team to develop a set of systems and processes around administering assets through PPLI and PPVA structures. And that really became the kind of the nexus of Spearhead Administrative Services, which is a business that we spun out of that predecessor firm about 4 years ago so that we could launch a standalone administrative business focused specifically on helping other investment managers and RIAs do what we did for those original clients.
So Ken was with you during that transition and when Spearhead was created?
Yeah, Ken Foley, our CEO, joined Spearhead 6 years ago from what was then Lombard, the largest insurance carrier in the private placement insurance marketplace. And likewise, Ken led the spin out, and 5 of us joined Ken when we spun out of the original Spearhead to launch Spearhead Administrative Services.
Beautiful. Next time we do this, a follow-up, we'll have Ken on for sure.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you think so?
I think so.
Yep. Tell him we were asking about him. So, lighthearted question. What makes you lose track of time?
I'd say my favorite hobby outside of work is improv. So I got into stand-up comedy and improv comedy about 8 years ago. I was living in West Palm Beach at the time. Wanted to work on my public speaking, become matriculate into more of a sales role, and so I gravitated towards stand-up and improv, and then that kind of I took the next step with it about 5 years ago when I moved to Miami. I joined an improv theater called Just the Funny, which is in Coral Gables, so kind of south side of Miami. Took their whole sort of litany of classes and then graduated from my last class. They said, hey, do you want to try out for the cast? And so I tried out and I got accepted into the cast, which is, call it 40 or 50 people that are a part of the cast. And so on the weekends, we alternate and perform at the theater for locals and friends. And, we'll hop on stage for a couple of hours and kind of goof off, kind of, think at the top of our heads and work off of audience suggestions and, put together shows. So I love it.
I think that's so cool. I think it's so aligned with sales as well, being quick on your feet. And I would just watch the Chris Farley episode on Netflix. I think it's This Is Chris. And they said one of the hardest things to do, but he was very good at as well as other successful improv actors, is your willingness to just bomb on stage and be okay with it. And then take what happened, what went well, what didn't go well, and then kind of adjust. Have you ever had those situations where you're on stage and you're just like, good God, get me off of this?
Oh, 100%. I have nights I'll go on and like some nights it's like magic. It's kind of like you're a star athlete and you just can't miss and you kind of black out. And then you get off the stage 2 hours later and people are slapping you on the back saying, hey, that was amazing. And then other nights for like no reason at all, it's just not working, or you'll fall flat on your face, or, a scene just won't work out. But that's kind of the art of improv, and I think what's special about it is that you could go up on stage and create something really cool, or you could totally bomb. But that's why people come to the shows. You want to entertain them.
That's the art of life.
That's heavy.
Yeah, right. Let's get deep on
The
this
art
one.
of life.
Yeah. PPLI. Let's talk about a segue. Holy crap. What is PPLI, private placement life insurance, and as well PPVA, private placement variable annuities?
PPLI and PPVA, they're institutionally priced, separate account, variable life insurance and annuity contracts. PPLI, the life insurance version, it is what it sounds like, life insurance. It's an insurance contract which requires a medical underwriting process. That said, clients that fund PPLI qualify for certain tax advantages under the Internal Revenue Code as it applies to life insurance. PPVA, the variable annuity, similarly, it's a variable annuity contract at the end of the day. That said, it features a separate account, and both contracts, both PPLI and PPVA, offer a tremendous amount of tax benefits as well as investment flexibility for wealthy individuals and family offices. And by definition, these are contracts that aren't available to everyone. You have to be both an accredited investor and qualified purchaser to buy these contracts.
So from a value prop standpoint, as a client and an advisor, what would be the 2 or 3 things that you would double down on in terms of this type of planning?
Yeah, I think so. Like PPLI or PPVA, I think like as a starting point, I mentioned you have to be both an AI and a QP to purchase one of these contracts. I think from a practical standpoint, this really makes sense as a solution if you have, call it 20 to 30 million of investable assets, where the insurance contract, it might represent a minority of your overall investable assets. Maybe this represents 10 to 20% of your investable balance sheet. That said, over the long term, it can function as a tax efficient asset location and allow you to compound your dollars tax efficiently, that are invested through the contract, and kind of expand your optionality over the long term as it relates to assets that you may pass to future generations or to charities that are important to you.
Dave, you mentioned earlier, but let's just dive into it a little deeper. These are life insurance policies and these are annuities, and there's certain rules that are necessary and regulations in order to qualify as a life insurance policy or an annuity. But the underlying separate accounts or investment options are a little different than a traditional life insurance or annuity product. Help us understand where Spearhead falls. What do you do? How do you help build out what those underlying investments are?
Yeah, if I'm an investment manager and I want to manage dollars for clients in this market, right off the bat, there are a couple of considerations from a compliance standpoint that I need to be mindful of. Number one, there's a rule called investor control, which essentially says if I'm an individual and I purchase one of these contracts, I'm allowed to select the underlying investment manager that oversees the dollars inside of my policy. And provided that those dollars are managed through a compliant fund vehicle called an insurance dedicated fund or a more bespoke portfolio called a separate managed account, I have to give up discretion to a third-party advisor. So I can agree with them on the investment mandate for how they'll manage the money. I can agree to them at a very broad level on kind of how, what potential asset classes or strategies they might access on my behalf. That said, from an investor control perspective, I have to give up discretion to that advisor. So I, as the policy owner, I'm not allowed to direct the advisors as it relates to specific investments they make through that IDF or SMA. Furthermore, from a diversification perspective, inside that IDF or SMA, you have to have at least 5 underlying assets or line items in that portfolio, where no single asset represents more than 55%, no 2 more than 70, no 3 more than 80, no 4 more than 90%. So for most advisors, it's not a big issue, but there does have to be some level of diversification, whether it's individual securities or investments in, subscription-based assets like hedge funds, private credit, private equity, et cetera.
So where do you get involved in the process? Where does Spearhead get involved?
Yeah, so Spearhead, we're an administrator in the private placement insurance marketplace. So we sit between the insurance company that issues the insurance contract to the wealthy individual or family office and underlying investment managers that want to apply their strategies and manage assets through these contracts. So we can either partner with asset management firms, so think hedge funds, private credit, private equity managers, asset managers that are used to building like commingled fund vehicles will build the equivalent for the private placement insurance marketplace called IDFs or insurance dedicated funds. And likewise, we engage with financial advisors, RIAs, and multifamily offices to build more bespoke separate managed account programs or SMA programs, which enable them to build custom portfolios for individual clients through these structures. And we're really agnostic as it relates to what solution we built. We're consultative with each investment manager. We want to build whatever solution kind of matches best with how they're used to implementing what they do investment-wise for their clients.
And I guess if we add another category in there, you would work with somebody like us as the insurance brokers who might have a client who's interested in certain alternative investments or strategies, and then a money manager or an RIA or a family office that's managing that for the client and trying to pull them together into these products.
100%. So you guys, I would view you guys as the insurance professionals that are involved more heavily with the client up front, helping the client determine, hey, does this product make sense for me? Where does it fit in my overall planning? What insurance company do I select for my contract? The insurance professional is vital to structuring the contract for the client up front. And then we're really involved on the back end, working with the insurance company and that investment manager to get that investment solution built and onboarded at the appropriate insurance company.
And if we take it fairly simply, I don't know if we can do this or not, but let's try. The easiest way to understand one of the advantages or the major advantage of these products is to measure the expenses of the contract, whether it's a life insurance or an annuity, in relation to what sort of tax savings the client or the owner of the contract might yield, right? And so if the insurance costs or all of the costs with the contract are lower than what the taxes would be, that, of course, at a high level, leads you to believe that it might be a good transaction. Is that a fair comparison, or is that Is that too simple?
No, it's very fair. I think for most clients, their thought process around does PPLI or PPVA make sense to me, it boils down to a math equation. Am I better off, or do I foresee being better off on a long-term basis, by funding one of these contracts and compounding my wealth after accounting for the cost of the insurance contract versus investing in a similar manner on a traditional taxable basis. And so, most clients that fund these contracts, they get that math and they see the value of utilizing these contracts as a tax efficient asset location. And I think also, it really lends itself to clients that desire alternative assets, whether it's hedge funds or private credit that may be more tax inefficient in nature. That relative sort of arbitrage of owning more tax inefficient asset classes or strategies through these contracts can sort of optimize or maximize the wealth compounding benefits of utilizing the contract itself.
Can you help us and our audience understand maybe some examples of cases, of course, without giving any individual client names, but maybe a profile of a case from beginning to end, what got the client interested, how it progressed down the path, and then ultimately what was placed and how things are moving forward?
So I'm going to posit this kind of a case of an investment manager that we worked with, because most of our clients are RIAs or asset managers. So we engaged with an asset or an RIA roughly 3 years ago, based out of Southern California. That firm was building an emerging, call it multifamily office. So worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, wealthy individuals and families. And they were referred into a client who said, hey, I've looked at PPLI. This makes sense for me. I want you, multifamily office, to help manage my policy via a custom SMA. And so we engaged with that RIA. We built their SMA program and submitted that to the insurance company for onboarding and approval. So, client was working with a licensed insurance professional similar to you guys in structuring that contract, and then Spearhead ran a parallel process to get that SMA program built and approved at the carrier. So, client number one completed their underwriting, contract was issued at the insurance company, RIA was in a position to manage that SMA. Got through that first experience, they said, hey, wow, this is kind of a cool tool. We can manage this portfolio for a client on a long-term income tax deferred, potentially income tax eliminated basis if they own this contract the rest of their life. Hey, we're in Southern California, a state with high state and local income tax rates. We also like allocating to tax inefficient alternatives. This looks like something we could repeat with other clients of ours. And so in the last 3 years, they've built their program up to, I think they have 20 to 30 clients they've implemented PPLI and PPVA for. They manage over $100 million just in this marketplace alone. And probably a bigger story for this RIA, they made a habit of kind of punching above their weight and utilizing their SMA program to attract higher net worth clients to their practice, because they were offering a solution that not every RIA in the area was offering. And earlier this year, they were acquired by a national roll-up in the RIA space. And part of the value of their acquisition was that they were subject matter experts in PPLI and PPVA and had demonstrated that they had used this effectively as a tool to attract higher net worth clients to their practice.
How important is the insurance advisor within this engagement?
It's pivotal. I mean, for a client to purchase PPLI or PPVA, they need to work with a properly licensed insurance professional. They assist the client with selecting the insurance company, assist the client with planning and thinking through ownership of that contract. Where does it integrate into my planning? How does it fit into my overall goals? So insurance professionals are at Spearhead, they're our greatest partners, because RIAs and asset managers that we work with, 9 times out of 10, we're being referred to them by an insurance professional who has a relationship with a wealthy family or an end client who has a need for one of these policies.
Yeah, and just thinking of the rating class that client's issued, I mean, that's the arbitrage Steve was alluding to earlier. better the rating class, the less premium they can allocate for the policy.
When you say rate, you mean medical rating class? when you
Medical
go through-
rating class, yeah, correct. And that process, I mean, because it is still an insurance product as much as this is deemed investment oriented with tax advantages. So how is the industry evolving?
I'd say it's evolving on a few fronts. We've had additional carriers enter into the marketplace, which I think is a reflection of a very healthy marketplace. Just looking domestically, you've got carriers like Prudential, Pacific Life, Zurich, Excelis Financial, Investors Preferred, Crown Global. We have Lincoln Financial entering this space nationwide. So you have a growing marketplace with additional carriers joining. In addition to that, a big change in this marketplace over the last 5 years has been the adoption of separate managed accounts as an approved investment solution through a number of the major carriers. And so over the last, call it 2 to 3 years in particular, we've seen a market shift in adoption of SMA programs by RIAs and financial advisory platforms, and really more RIAs entering this marketplace because they're attracted to the SMA construct because it really looks and feels to how they manage assets on a traditional basis for clients. There's less friction involved in managing these dollars through SMAs if you're an RIA. So we see a tremendous amount of growth as more and more RIA platforms, as well as wirehouses and private banks adopt these solutions in their toolkit.
Is there anything you want to share that gets you really excited about where PPLI is going?
I just think it's exciting anytime a new platform or new brand name asset manager enters into this marketplace. I think more broadly, I think I mentioned Spearhead works with 85 investment managers, roughly 20 asset managers that we built commingled IDF vehicles with, another call it 65 RIAs that we built more bespoke SMA programs with. I think as more and more firms enter into this marketplace, we're excited because that's another firm that's talking about PPLI, bringing it up with their clients. And I think over time that's created kind of this snowball effect where as more firms are talking about this, as more firms are knowledgeable about these solutions, it kind of normalizes the discussion, and all of a sudden you see a sales process go from 5 or 6 years ago, this might have been a 6-month sales process because we had to educate the advisor, the attorney, the CPA, where today maybe that's a 3-month sales process because the advisor's seen this before, the attorney's worked on client cases involving PPLI, the CPA knows what this is already. So I think that just excites us. I think it's kind of the acceleration of adoption because it's very kind of self-perpetuating, self-feeding.
It's not as foreign.
Yeah.
Thanks for being with us.
I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave Reynolds from Spearhead.
Bye. Goodbye.
The material and opinions voiced are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what is appropriate for you, please contact a member of our team.